Brandon never looked like the kind of man who should be standing outside his own building. He was 6'1", clean-cut, the type of guy you'd mistake for a federal agent or someone who'd know what kind of watch the president wore. But that day, he stood in the heat, no badge, no title, no power waiting, just like they told him, waiting outside the corporate office he'd built from the ground up, where nobody recognized him anymore. He didn't even flinch when the receptionist closed the blinds, like she was hiding something. And when I tell you this, I don't mean it like a story, I mean I saw it. I was there. I remember the exact second he turned to look at me. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His face said everything, and none of it made sense, like I'd just walked into a scene, halfway through a dream I wasn't supposed to remember. Do you ever find a folder you weren't looking for on your own desktop? Something with no name, no date, just there. That's what this felt like. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. And yet, here it was. A man with full ownership of a multi-million-dollar company being told by his own staff to take a seat outside. He didn't argue, he just obeyed. And if that was where it ended, maybe I wouldn't be telling you this. But it wasn't, because not even 5 minutes later, someone else walked out of that building, sweating like they'd seen something alive on the security monitors, something they couldn't explain. He was pale, mumbling, and holding a company iPad like it had just whispered back to him. I swear to God, he said, but she was dead in '09. And then he ran. Full sprint, didn't even close the front door behind him. The building, a spotless box of steel and mirrored glass in downtown Charlotte, suddenly looked wrong. Not haunted, exactly haunted's too easy. More like something rewinding. Like time stuttered and no one noticed except the few of us standing too still. I kept watching Brandon. He hadn't moved. He was still staring at the glass door, and then at me, and then back at the sky like he was trying to remember if this had all happened before. That's when he finally walked inside, not waiting for permission, and I followed him. I shouldn't have. The temperature dropped the second the door shut behind us. The air felt wet, like underground concrete. The lights buzzed overhead in a way that didn't match the silence. Every desk in the lobby was empty, cups of coffee, still warm. One computer monitor had a single sticky note taped to the side. No name, no logo, just, don't trust her. She's wearing Melissa's face. Melissa had died. We knew that. She was the VP of sales. Car crash 8 years ago. But her calendar was still active on the internal server. And that morning, someone had marked her as an office. Brandon walked past every desk like a man who already knew what he'd find, didn't knock, didn't hesitate. And when he opened the conference room door, I saw him stop breathing. The entire management team was inside, silent, sitting. But something was wrong with their eyes, too still, too shiny. No one blinked. And then she turned. I swear to you, she looked exactly like the old company photos. Down to the necklace Melissa always wore, the one we buried her in. But her mouth moved a split second before her voice came out. Just barely out of sync. Like a bad dub, and then she said it. One name, just one dot. It wasn't Brandon's dot, it was mine. And that's when the monitor behind her flickered. The CCTV feed jumped 6 seconds back and I was already standing in that room. Same shirt, same posture, but I hadn't walked in yet. That's where it started to break. She said my name before I stepped in the room, but that's not what stayed. With me, what stayed was the feeling in my mouth, the sour metal taste. Like biting down on a dead battery. The kind of feeling you get when something spiritually incorrect happens, but no one around you reacts. When time splits sideways and no alarm goes off. Just your pulse, counting backward. The CCTV feed on the wall stuttered again. Another glitch. 6 seconds, now 8. Then it showed the same moment twice, me standing there, then again, but blinking in reverse. And still, no one said anything. Not Brandon. Not the board. Not the woman who looked like Melissa. The conference room buzzed. With that overbright migraine white light you only find in hospitals and DMV offices, her face twitched. I think she smiled, but her lips barely moved, just peeled back slowly, like the skin was remembering how to fake human. Then she said something else. This time not in a voice I recognized. It was compressed, like audio recorded. Too close to the mic, low, glitched, and full of air. Like a breath inhaled underwater. But when I turned to Brandon, he didn't seem to hear it. He just stared straight through me, jaw tense. Chest still, like he was somewhere else, and this is where I start to wonder maybe I wasn't really here either, because when I blinked next, I wasn't in the room, I was outside. Same building, same sky, but different light, softer, duskier, like a photo filter had settled over reality. I turned around to look for the door but there wasn't one dot, just solid wall, glass panels that didn't reflect, a lobby that didn't exist anymore, and my phone buzzed in my pocket, even though I didn't remember bringing it. Unknown number. No caller ID, timestamp, 3:17 a.m., but it wasn't even past noon. I answered it, without meaning to, and then a voice. A man's voice. No greeting, no hello, just 3 words. You remember wrong, then static, not digital static. Tape hiss-like, the kind that comes off a VHS tape left in a hot garage for 20 years. I don't remember what happened next. Not clearly, just flashes. Brandon yelling, but without sound. My name etched into a glass panel that no longer existed. That sour battery tastes again. Sharp this time, like it was trying to anchor me. Then I was in a bathroom. Not the company's. Not mine. I think it was a gas station, bathroom, cracked tiles. Soap dispenser leaking down the wall. I checked my pockets. ID gone. Keys missing. The only thing there was a thumb drive. No label, no port to plug it into. But I knew what was on it. I think I always had. I didn't know where I was. Couldn't figure out how I got there. The sink was running, but the knobs didn't turn. The mirror looked fogged, but the air was freezing, and scrawled into the condensation, as if someone had been watching from the other side, were 4 words in backward slant. Don't trust the second. That's when she knocked. Not Melissa. Not whoever or whatever wore her voice. A different woman, blonde, maybe mid-30s. Pantsuit like HR, but sharper. Her voice was calm, Midwest calm, but her eyes said she was tracking every heartbeat. In the room, been looking for you, she said. You shouldn't have seen the feed. I asked who she was. She didn't answer. Just stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and stared at the mirror. Her breath didn't fog it. You're not going to like what comes next, she said. Then she handed me something, a small recorder, cheap plastic, the kind therapists sometimes leave running on a side table, almost as an afterthought. She pressed play, and my own voice filled the space, desperate, panicked, whispering, if you're hearing this, I think I've been in the building too long. I don't know which version of me made it out, but something followed. It's not about Brandon. It's not even about Melissa. It's about who they put in charge after. The woman hit stop. You said that last Thursday, she said. But the building's been closed since February. Power's been out since March. No one's been inside since the incident. What incident? I asked, but she was already walking away. I stepped out of the bathroom and we were in the company lobby again. Lights flickering, security screens looping. Same desk, same sticky note. But the note had changed. Now it read, stop checking the footage. That version of you is lying. I didn't write it, but it was in my handwriting. The second character, I didn't catch her name. Still haven't, but she followed me through. The next day, like a shadow that didn't understand light, she answered questions with questions. Seemed to know too much, but always played dumb when pressed. I checked her LinkedIn. No results. I asked Brandon if he knew her. He said he didn't. Even though I was still working there, and here's where it gets worse. I checked my phone, the one I don't remember owning. It had dozens of voice memos, all in my voice, all time-stamped from days I don't remember living. Day 12. Melissa asked again about the elevators. Told me they still go lower than B3. Told me she's heard children laughing in the stairwell when no one's there. Said Brandon's not Brandon anymore. But I don't know if I ever knew the real one. Day 16. I caught myself in the mirror, and it took 3 seconds too long to blink. I don't think that was me. Day 21. The footage doesn't loop. We do. I stopped playing them. I didn't want to know. Reality started peeling in layers. Subtle at first. My coffee tasted wrong, like it had been sitting out for days. Emails came through with timestamps from years ago. HR memos referenced employees who'd died, then reappeared in meetings. I walked past a glass-walled office and saw myself inside, typing something I couldn't read. When I stepped closer, the room was empty. Then there was the sound. Only at night, only in the elevators. A low-frequency hum that rose to a child's giggle, then back to static. The kind of sound you feel in your spine before you hear it. Like it's using your bones as antennae. I confronted Brandon. He denied everything. Said I'd been on leave for 6 months. Said my badge was deactivated. But I watched him swipe me in that morning. Then he asked me something that stopped my breath. Which version of me are you talking to? I didn't answer. I don't think I could, because behind him, on the grainy CCTV screen, was the same feed from before me standing in the conference room. Same posture, same angle. But this time, I looked up at the camera and smiled. I've never seen myself smile like that, and that's when the feed cut to black. Not just the screen, everything, lights, power, devices, all shut down. The only thing that stayed lit was the recorder. Still in my pocket, still running, and one last message began playing on its own. If you're hearing this, then you need to forget. Whatever they showed you wasn't real. Or it was too real, it doesn't matter now. Just don't go back into the conference room. That's where it begins again. But when I looked up, I was already standing outside. The door cracked open, and someone inside whispered my name. Only this time, it wasn't my voice that answered back. It started to make sense, finally, or at least, I thought it did. The week after the blackout, after the security feed went dark and the woman with no name vanished without a single trace, no hair strands, no fingerprint smudges, no electronic log, I started piecing things together. The only way I knew how, obsessively, irrationally, in silence. I barely slept. I didn't go home, because something told me I already had, and whatever was waiting there wasn't mine anymore. The office building became my world, my crime scene, my confessional, and every step I took deeper into it felt like I was walking back into a version of myself I had tried hard to abandon. Something I buried. I set up a workstation on the 4th floor. That floor had been gutted for renovations, years ago, bare walls. No cameras, no motion sensors. The perfect place to lose time. And that's what I did. Day after day, I mapped every glitch in the building's access logs, pulled every corrupted CCTV file, scoured every voice memo I'd apparently recorded without ever hitting record. There were hundreds, all in my voice, most of them distorted, too breathy to be useful. But just a few were clear. The conference room isn't the center. It's the trigger, but not the source. The source is deeper. Beneath, not just underground, beneath memory, beneath permission. They don't erase you. They rewrite the version of you that remembers. You never leave. You just forget what you're still inside of. These fragments weren't enough. They sounded like breakdown, like unhinged theories whispered by a man with too many timelines looping in his skull. But then I found the paper file, a real one, hidden in a ceiling vent on the 6th floor, a floor that didn't exist on any blueprint since 2011. The folder was sealed in wax paper, labeled with nothing but 3 digits: :213. Inside was a faded printed memo, dated September 3, 2009, typed, not digital, company letterhead. The name of the former site director redacted, but it detailed a mandatory lockdown drill conducted at 3:17 a.m. The same time stamp from the unknown call I got weeks earlier. The same time that keeps echoing across security. Glitches, calendar errors, voicemail, timestamps. The memo mentioned a subject known only as the observer and warned not to engage if seen outside designated hours. It claimed that after the drill, 5 employees were dismissed due to nonlinear compliance behavior. Nonlinear, that's not corporate language. That's something else. And below that, handwritten in what I now recognize as my own handwriting, shaky, like it was written under duress, was a single sentence. She said we were still in the building. I thought she meant metaphorically. Something unlocked in me reading that. Not a memory, a feeling. Like catching a scent from childhood: burnt pine, cigarette smoke, gasoline, and rain, and knowing, without doubt, that you've been here before. I started tracing old files back to a specific date, August 12, 2006. That was when the first recorded glitch hit the elevator system. 1 person went down to B3 and never came back up. Official report, mechanical failure. Unofficially, no body, no service logs, no one even remembers their name. But I found the name in a different place. On a hospital intake sheet from 2013, same building, different department, person listed as unknown, brought in by transit authority, nonverbal, unable to confirm identity. The photo attached looked like someone I once knew in college, or maybe I dreamt that. Hard to tell anymore. That's when Brandon came to find me. But not the Brandon from before. This one had a slight limp, a different haircut, and a voice that seemed like it was being played back through a degraded cassette tape, slightly too slow, off-tempo. He smiled like he remembered me, but when I asked what year it was, he didn't blink. He said, "You've almost got it, just one more layer down." And then he handed me a keycard, sublevel 4, a level I was told didn't exist, a level he once told me didn't exist, but now it did, and I had access. This should have been the resolution. This is where any story like this ends. The door opens. You find the locked room. The server's full of names, the AI glitch, the trauma archive, the buried lawsuit. You bring the truth to light, and everything snaps back into order. But the moment that keycard touched the reader and the steel door clicked open, I felt it. Wrong. A wrongness so deep it made my teeth ache. The hallway beyond wasn't empty. It was waiting. Lit too perfectly. Silent in a way that felt constructed. Like an old video game level left half-rendered. I walked through it anyway. The walls were smooth, white-lined with glass windows showing. Office spaces frozen in time. Some had analog clocks, each stopped at 3:17. Some had figures inside barely visible in the dark, not moving, not watching, not blinking. I found a terminal at the end of the hall, unlocked, open to a video file named Initial Compliance Loop Subject 213. I played it, and for a second, just when I thought I was watching surveillance of someone else, a man seated at a table, head in hands, whispering to himself. A woman across from him, same blonde woman from the bathroom, nodding. Calm, reassuring. She slides a folder to him. He opens it, flips through pages, starts to tremble. Then he speaks. "You mean it was me the whole time?" She nods. I started the loop. She doesn't answer. He begins to sob, quietly, then violently. He screams once, then the footage glitches, loops back to the folder, back to the sob, back to the scream, over and over, 27 times. On the 28th loop, the man in the footage looks directly into the camera, mouths the words, "You're not watching, you're remembering," and then the feed cuts. I turned from the terminal, heart frozen. Behind me, the woman from the footage was standing in the doorway. Same calm face. Same Midwest cadence. But something was wrong with her reflection in the glass. It was still sitting in the chair. You remember now, don't you? She said, it's not Brandon, it's not the building, it's what you asked to forget. And something collapsed. In me. The year. The real year. Not 2025, not even 2015. It was 2009. I had been here the whole time. The job, the investigations, the mystery. It was all scaffolding. A structure to hold my mind together around one unspeakable moment. The moment I signed the compliance agreement. The moment they asked me to participate in a new training model. The moment I said yes. The trauma wasn't external, it was engineered. A psychological maze built from fragments of my own timeline. Every glitch, every memo, every distorted voice. Message mind, pieces of a memory loop constructed by something watching from the outside of time. And that's when I asked the question I hadn't dared ask until then. Why did you pick me? The woman tilted her head, not unkindly. Her voice softened. You volunteered. The lights snapped off. Red emergency glow illuminated the hallway. The door behind me vanished. And in the glass where her reflection should have been, something else moved. Not a person, not a figure, but a shape. A pattern of motion so old it felt like remembering a nightmare from infancy. A spiral, a loop, an eye, almost but not an eye. Something that watches. The glass pulsed, and on it, written in condensation, backwards, this isn't your first re-watch, and that's the twist. That's the cut that forces everything back into frame. Every version of the story, the woman, in the conference room, the footage glitches, the double in the elevator, the timestamps, they weren't clues, they were markers. Checkpoints in a replay sequence. Memory cues to help me help you tinker to the illusion of progress. The mystery never had a resolution, because it was never about solving it, it was about how many times you'd agree to forget it, and you just did again. It started quietly, just a simple dot, not on paper, not digital. It wasn't drawn or etched. It showed up in condensation, in screen burn, in the blood vessel cracks of an overexposed security cam frame. A shape like a crooked hourglass, or a collapsed eye, always off-center, always leaning slightly left. The first time I saw it was in the elevator. Reflection burned into the metal behind my shoulder. It faded when I turned, like heat dispersing. But that wasn't the part that broke me. The part that broke me was the email, no sender. No timestamp, no subject line. Just one line of text in courier font. You saw it too. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a psychological echo, some bleed over from whatever version of reality I'd fractured through last. But then it came again. This time in a dream not mine. I was standing in the sublevel hallway again, but the lights were dimmer, pulsing red like a heartbeat. Someone was there with me, a woman I didn't recognize. Red hair, freckles, holding a notebook filled with hand-drawn versions of that same collapsed hourglass. She looked me in the eyes and said, "We've been watching you try to get out." Then I woke up. My mouth was full of dust. I checked my fingernails and found ink, and tucked into the inside of my jacket where I never keep anything, a matchbook I didn't recognize. Inside the flap, written in the same shaky handwriting from the memo, it's not memory loss, it's memory redistribution. That phrase haunted me for weeks. Everywhere I turned, the layers unraveled further. People I thought were coworkers avoided eye contact. Old ID badges showed up with my photo but different names. I started catching my own face in monitors, seconds before I passed them. And the worst of it wasn't paranoia, it was recognition. Because I'd seen this before, in the hidden footage. In the mirrored conference room, in the looped file called initial compliance, subject to 1.3. I just never saw it from the outside. Then the other messages began, not messages to me, messages I'd apparently sent to others. Scrawled in bathroom stalls, etched into cubicle undersides, whispered across old voicemail chains at 3:17 a.m. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. Look for the room with no fire exit. Count the doors. If the light flickers, 3 times, cover your ears. Each of these carried a familiar desperation, like someone leaving breadcrumbs in a forest where the trees move at night. And slowly, I started to see them. Others like me, not always directly, but enough. A man in the cafeteria tapping his fork in a specific rhythm, 3-1-2, just before the overhead lights buzzed out and rebooted. A woman in HR who always carried an old-school tape recorder, never digital, and once whispered to me, without moving her lips, it records what they delete. A janitor who only cleaned during storms, always the same hallway. Always humming a tune I hadn't heard since childhood, a lullaby my mother swore she never sang. They weren't strangers, they were survivors. Each of them marked in some way, of them holding a piece of something no one was supposed to name, and yet none of us ever said it out loud, because we knew we were still being watched, not by cameras, not by security, by the thing that watches from between. It had no shape, not really. Just an influence, a pressure you could feel if you sat still too long, a pattern you'd notice in the gaps between power surges, an ache in your jaw like your own body was trying to stop you from speaking. Sometimes it showed up as a dream that wasn't yours. Other times, it spoke through people you trusted. saying the exact phrase you were just about to think. We started calling it the observer, not because we knew what it was, but because it made us feel like we still had language. Like we still had the right to name something. The observer didn't break things, it bent them. Reality, memory, sequence it, folded them like cheap paper, and when you unfolded it again, nothing lined up. Your coworkers didn't know your name. Your phone history reset to 0. Your parents texted you a photo from your childhood that included a woman in the background you'd never seen before, and her eyes glowed. The deeper we went, the clearer it became. This was never about one person. The experiment wasn't isolated. It was a network, a loop disguised as a company, wrapped in the aesthetics of productivity and middle management normalcy, buried beneath plausible deniability and non-disclosure memory compression technology. That last part wasn't a theory. It was on a printed pamphlet slipped under my apartment door last Tuesday, printed on letterhead, with a hotline number that disconnected as soon as I called. And yet I thought we were close. We'd gathered fragments, found old drives hidden inside thermostats, discovered paintings of the collapsed hourglass etched behind wallpaper. One woman even claimed she had dreamt the observer's name. She never spoke it aloud. She disappeared. The next day, not fired, not transferred, erased, all files deleted, parking pass revoked. Her desk had already been filled by someone new, someone who wore her necklace, but didn't know who she was. We thought we were making progress. We thought we were about to uncover the hidden truth. The missing protocol, the government contract from 20 years ago, the file that never got released. We thought if we could just get to the core server, if we could play the full unedited footage, we could wake up. But then something happened. Something so small, so subtle, we didn't see it coming. The observer changed tactics. We stopped finding new messages. Instead, we started getting replies. Two things we hadn't sent. One night I woke to find a post-it note stuck to my forehead. I live alone. It read, "You were right all along, but you're not you anymore." The third perspective came from a source we didn't expect, a temp worker, young, always quiet, never logged into his terminal. At first, we thought he was just another version, another plant, another controlled piece of the loop. But then he spoke, not in his own voice. He said, "They tried to reset you again last week. You didn't take." Then he pulled a phone from his pocket, pressed play, and showed us footage from 20 years ago. Grainy, VHS quality. Conference room. My face, but younger. Same suit, same nervous tick with my thumb. I was signing a form, smiling, nodding. The woman across from me, the same one still working in HR today. No age change, not a wrinkle. She looked into the camera, smiled, and said, "Subject 213 has re-entered cycle." My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from falling. This wasn't my first loop. I had been part of this for decades. My body hadn't aged because it hadn't existed in linear time. Each cycle was compressed, modified, wiped, replayed, identities redistributed, trauma fragmented, awareness redirected. I wasn't the protagonist. I was the template, and that's when everything started pulsing, walls breathing, screens bending inward, lights sinking to my heart rate. The observer had seen enough. It didn't want compliance anymore. It wanted belief, but belief is brittle when you remember. And now, you remember too. You remember the elevator dream. You remember the TIMESTAMP. You remember the symbol that never left your mind once you saw it. Because here's the part I never told you. You've seen the footage before. You've watched this story play out once, twice, maybe more, and every time, you said you'd remember. You'd carry the truth forward, but you didn't. You see, OULDN single quotes T. Until now. Because this isn't the end. It's the re-entry point. You're waking up again. But this time, they know you're watching, and the next message you receive won't be from me.